Did you know that as you age, quirky little habits can slip into your life without warning? You might think you've got it all figured out, but suddenly you're talking to yourself, dodging new tech, or obsessing over the weather. These are the unexpected habits many seniors pick up as they get older, and they can throw you for a loop. But here's the good news: you're not alone, and there are easy ways to deal with every single one. Meet Robert, a spirited 72-year-old who used to be all about spontaneity. Just a few years back, he'd jump at any adventure. Road trips, new gadgets, you name it. But lately, Robert's noticed some odd changes sneaking in. He's doing things he never pictured himself doing, and it's left him scratching his head. Sometimes laughing, sometimes frustrated. His story hits home for so many older adults, showing that aging comes with surprises no one warns you about. Whether it's your routine, your preferences, or how you see the world, these habits can feel weird at first. But don't sweat it. Today, we'll follow Robert's journey and unpack 7 surprising habits seniors often develop, with practical tips to handle each one. So, if you're ready to tackle these quirks with a grin, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's jump in. Number 1. Talking to yourself. Robert was standing in his kitchen the other morning, brewing his usual cup of coffee, when he caught himself mid-sentence, muttering out loud about the strangest things. "Where's the sugar hiding today?" he grumbled, followed by, "Why's this mug feel like it's gained 10 pounds? He stopped, chuckled to himself, and shook his head. It was a light-hearted moment, but it made him pause. Lately, he's been noticing this little habit creeping in more often, carrying on full-blown conversations with no one but himself. At first, it threw him off. Was he turning into that quirky old guy everyone talks about? But then he realized something. Tons of seniors do this exact same thing. And honestly, it's not a big deal at all. In fact, it's pretty normal as you age. A little quirk that sneaks up when you least expect it. The truth is, Robert's not losing his marbles, and neither are you if you've caught yourself doing the same. Chatting away solo isn't some red flag. It's just part of how life shifts as the years roll on. And here's the kicker: it might even be useful. So, what's the fix for this newfound habit? Well, why fix it at all? Robert's starting to lean into it, and you might want to give that a shot too. Talking to yourself can actually be a handy tool. It helps you process your thoughts, sort out what's swirling in your head, or even jog your memory about tasks you need to tackle. Robert's found it's like having a little assistant in his brain, keeping him on track when he's fumbling for the sugar or wondering why the mug feels so hefty. But okay, let's say it bugs you a bit. Maybe you don't love the idea of being caught mid-chat by a neighbor or family member. No worries. There's a workaround. You can keep it silent, turning that chatter into an inner dialogue instead of letting it spill out loud. Or, if you're feeling proactive, grab a pen and jot down some notes. Turn those mutterings into a quick list to keep yourself organized. It's all about what feels right for you. Robert's still laughing about his coffee fiasco, and he's curious. Have you caught yourself talking solo lately? What's the funniest moment you've had with it? Drop it in the comments below. Share your story, your giggles, anything. Let's keep this chat alive because, trust me, you're not the only one gabbing to yourself these days. Number 2. Avoiding new technology. Robert used to be the guy who couldn't wait to get his hands on the latest gizmo. Back in the day, he'd spend hours tinkering with gadgets, figuring out how they worked, showing them off to friends, loving every second of it. But now, he's dodging them like they're hot potatoes. Take his smart speaker, for instance, a fancy little gift from his kids. It's been sitting in its box for months, gathering dust on a shelf. Every time he walks by it, he feels a pang of frustration, like he's somehow out of step with the world buzzing around him. It's not that he doesn't want to keep up. It's just that new tech feels overwhelming these days. A mountain he's not sure he wants to climb. And here's the thing: he's not alone. Many seniors find themselves sidestepping technology as they age, turning away from the shiny new toys that once sparked excitement. It's a shift that sneaks up on you, and it can leave you feeling a little lost. But Robert's starting to see it doesn't have to be that way. And neither do you. So, how do you handle this tech avoidance creeping into your life? The trick is to start tiny. Really, that's it. You don't have to dive into the deep end and figure out every bell and whistle overnight. Pick one thing, something simple that might actually make your day easier. Like texting, Robert's thinking about giving that a go. Maybe asking his daughter to sit with him and show him the ropes. Having a friend or family member guide you can take the pressure off, turning it into a small adventure instead of a chore. Or, if you're flying solo, pull up a quick tutorial online. There's a video for everything these days. And watching one can boost your confidence bit by bit. Robert's realizing it's not about mastering it all. And that's the key. You don't need to become a tech wizard. It's about finding what works for you. What fits into your life without making your head spin. For Robert, that dusty smart speaker might stay boxed a little longer. But he's warming up to the idea of trying something small. What about you? What tech do you avoid like the plague? Is it the smartphone, the tablet, or something else? Tell us in the comments below. Share your struggles, your victories, whatever's on your mind. Let's swap stories and maybe even inspire each other to take a baby step or two into this techie world. Because who says we can't still learn a trick or two? Number 3. Obsessing over the weather. Robert's found himself practically glued to the weather forecast these days, his eyes darting to the TV or his phone screen like it's the most gripping show in town. Just last week, he saw a rainy day in the predictions, and it threw off his whole vibe. He spent hours mulling over whether to cancel his walk, rearrange his errands, or just hunker down with a frown. It's a new fixation that's taken him by surprise, something he didn't see coming at all. Back in the day, he'd barely glance at the sky before heading out, shrugging off a drizzle or a gusty wind without a second thought. Now, it's like the clouds hold the key to his entire week. And here's the funny part. It's not just him. This weather obsession is super common among seniors, a little quirk that seems to bloom as the years pile on. Maybe it's the need for control, or maybe it's just that a stormy day hits differently when you're not rushing around like you used to. Whatever it is, Robert's knee deep in it now, and he's not quite sure how it became such a big deal. But he's learning there's a way to handle it, and you can too. So, what can you do about this weather watching habit? The simplest fix is to check it once, then move on with your day. Robert's trying that out, peeking at the forecast in the morning, getting the scoop, and then letting it go instead of refreshing the app every hour. It's about breaking that cycle of overthinking every cloud. Better yet, use it to your advantage. Plan something fun around it. A rainy day could mean a cozy indoor afternoon with a book or a movie, turning a potential downer into a treat. Robert's even thinking of leaning into it more. Maybe turning this fixation into a hobby. Tracking patterns, jotting down notes about the seasons. It could be kind of cool, right? If you love it, why not make it yours? The goal's not to let it stress you out but to flip it into something that adds a little spark. Robert's still figuring out how to loosen his grip on the forecast, but he's curious about you. How do you handle your weather worries? Do you shrug them off? Or are you checking the radar too? Drop your tips, or your funniest weather freakout, in the comments below. Let's share ideas and maybe even laugh about how much those clouds can mess with us, because we're all in this together. Number 4. Sticking to rigid routines. Robert used to be the king of winging it. Back in his younger days, he'd roll out of bed whenever, grab a bite when he felt like it, and let the day unfold however it wanted. Plans? Who needed him? But now, he's all about structure, and it's a change that's snuck up on him like a quiet guest he didn't invite. These days, his mornings are locked in tight. Breakfast at 8 sharp, news at 9 on the dot, walk at 10 like clockwork. It's become this predictable dance, a rhythm he's settled into without even realizing how much he relies on it. And honestly, it's comforting. There's a coziness in knowing exactly what's coming next. A steady beat that keeps his days humming along. Still, it's a shift he didn't expect. This move from free-spirited to timetable devotee. He catches himself wondering how he got here. And it turns out he's not alone. Many seniors start clinging to routines as they age, building these little scaffolds around their days. It's soothing, sure, but it can also feel restrictive, like the walls of habit are closing in just a bit too tight. So, what's the trick to handling this love affair with structure? Robert's figuring it out, and it's simpler than you'd think. Keep the rhythm, but tweak it here and there. You don't have to toss the whole schedule out the window. That'd be chaos, and who wants that? Instead, hold on to the bones of what works, the parts that keep you steady, and then sprinkle in some small shakes to keep it fresh. For Robert, that might mean sticking to his 8 a.m. breakfast but trying a new cafe down the street one morning a week. It's not a total overhaul, just a little twist to break the monotony. A nudge to remind himself he's still got some wiggle room in there. Those tiny changes can breathe new life into the routine without unraveling the comfort he's come to crave. It's all about balance, finding that sweet spot between predictable and playful. Robert's starting to like the idea of mixing it up a little. But he's curious about you. Are you a routine lover too? Do you thrive on that steady beat? Or have you found ways to shake things loose? Share what keeps you grounded, or how you spice it up, in the comments below. Let's swap notes on how we keep our days ticking along. Because there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to this routine game. Number 5. Repeating stories. Robert's got this one story his family could recite in their sleep. The big fishing trip from '98. The one where he swears he reeled in a monster bass that nearly yanked him into the lake. It's his go-to tale, and lately, he's been spinning it over and over without even noticing. He'll start in with that familiar gleam in his eye. Did I ever tell you about that summer at the lake? And before he's halfway through, his kids exchange that knowing glance. They've got it memorized by now, down to the part where he exaggerates the fish's size just a little more each time. When he catches on, it's a little awkward. He'll trail off with a sheepish grin, wondering how he didn't clock their polite nods sooner. But here's the thing. Lots of seniors do this as they age, slipping into these story loops without meaning to. It's not a sign of anything dire, just a quirky habit that tags along with the years. Like a favorite old song you can't help but hum again and again. So, how do you manage this tendency to repeat yourself? Robert's picking up a few tricks, and they're easier than you'd think. One smooth save is to ask up front, "Hey, have you heard this one before?" It's a quick check that lets you gauge the room without diving straight into the rerun. His daughter usually gives him a gentle, "Yep, Dad, the fish one," and he can pivot to something fresh, or at least tweak the tale for a new twist. But here's the real gem. If you do catch yourself retelling a story, just laugh it off. Robert's found that most folks don't care. They're happy to let him ramble, especially when he's so into it. A little chuckle, "Oops, there I go again," keeps it light, and honestly, it's endearing more than annoying. The key is not to sweat it. Those repeats are just part of the storytelling charm that comes with age. Robert's still got that '98 fish on his mind, but he's curious about your repeats. Caught yourself in a story loop lately? What's the tale you can't stop telling? The one your family or friends could finish for you? Tell us your best repeat in the comments below. Share the details, the laughs, whatever makes it yours. Let's trade laughs and see who's got the wildest rerun. Because we've all got a story that's too good to tell just once. Number 6. Napping more often. Robert used to be the guy who could breeze through the day like it was nothing. Morning coffee to evening errands. No pit stops needed. He'd power through with energy to spare, laughing off anyone who suggested a break. But lately, that's changed in a way he didn't see coming. Now, he's dozing off on the couch by 2 p.m., his eyes getting heavy before he even realizes what's happening. It sneaks up fast. 1 minute he's flipping through a magazine. The next he's out cold, head tilted back, a soft snore slipping out. When he blinks awake, he wonders if it's okay to be nodding off like this, if it's a sign he's slowing down too much. But then it hits him. Napping more is normal as you age, and he's not the only one catching these midday Z's. It's just his body's way of recharging. A little signal that it needs a pause to keep going strong. Far from a problem. It's a natural shift, like the way seasons ease into each other over time. So, what's the move when napping becomes your new afternoon buddy? Robert's figuring it out, and it's pretty straightforward. Keep it short and sweet. He's aiming for 20 to 30 minutes. Just enough to refresh his tank without throwing his whole night out of whack. Too long, and he's groggy till bedtime, staring at the ceiling instead of sleeping. Too short, and he's still dragging. That sweet spot, though, it's magic. Leaves him perky enough to tackle the rest of the day without feeling like he's cheated the clock. His trick is to set a timer. Nothing fancy, just the little alarm on his phone, so he can sink into that nap guilt-free, knowing he won't overshoot. It's become a small treat, a quiet moment to enjoy without overthinking it. Robert's starting to see the beauty in these little rests, a chance to reset and roll on with a clearer head. He's embracing the nap life now, but he's curious about you. Are you a napper too? Do you sneak in a quick snooze when the day gets heavy? Or are you still powering through? Share how you make it work. Or if you've got a napping trick up your sleeve. In the comments below, let's swap notes on catching those Z's. Because there's nothing wrong with a little recharge when your body asks for it. Number 7. Overplanning every outing. Robert used to be the master of spontaneity. Back in the day, he'd dash out the door with nothing but his keys and a whim. Ready to see where the wind took him. A quick trip to the store or a drive to see a friend? No prep, no fuss, just go. But now, he's a different guy altogether. These days, he's plotting every step of an outing like he's mapping a cross-country expedition. Where's the best parking spot? What snacks should he bring? What's the backup plan if traffic's a mess? It's a habit that's taken root deep in him, turning even a simple errand into a full-on strategy session. He'll sit there, scribbling notes or mentally running through every what if. And it's not just because he's got time to kill. It's about feeling in control, keeping the chaos at bay in a world that feels less predictable than it used to. And here's the kicker. Many seniors do this exact same thing, overplanning to hold onto that sense of command as the years stack up. It's comforting in its own way, but Robert's starting to notice it can weigh him down too. Sometimes he's so caught up in the details, he forgets to enjoy the ride. So, how do you lighten up when overplanning got you in its grip? Robert's working on it, and the answer's simpler than he expected. Plan the must-haves. Then wing the rest. You don't have to ditch the habit entirely. Those key pieces, like knowing where to park or having a snack handy, can stay. But after that, let it go a little. He's trying this new move. Packing a small essentials bag with the basics: water, a granola bar, maybe a map, and then trusting himself to adapt if things shift. A full tank of gas and a loose idea of the day are enough. The rest can sort itself out. It's about ease, not perfection. Easing that needs to micromanage every second so he can breathe and enjoy the outing instead of stressing over it. Robert's finding there's freedom in that balance, a way to keep control without chaining himself to a checklist. He's still tweaking this lighter approach, but he's curious about you. Do you overplan too? Are you mapping every move? Or have you cracked the code to chill out? Drop your hacks, or your funniest overplanning moment, in the comments below. Let's help each other loosen up a bit. Because life's too short to sweat every parking spot. These sneaky habits might creep in as you age, but they don't have to take over. With a bit of know-how and a sprinkle of humor, you can still live life your way. You're not alone in this journey. So embrace those quirks with a smile. If this rang true for you, smash that like button and share it with someone who'd nod in agreement. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Let's keep navigating these twists together. Because aging's a wild ride. And you've got this.